Welcome, everyone, as Kidneys. You might remember him. I remember a famous quote one day. He said, "We are not starting until the song is over." Yes, the song is over. Welcome in, everyone. Look at everyone representing all over the world. We have 21 countries from around the world here tuning into this HAWC with a C report. Number 9, and hope you're having a wonderful Thursday, no matter what time it is. DishNet, what a fabulous, wonderful show today. Man, the energy that kid has, just going and going and going, and it was a theme of bronze and tops and relievers. Fun stream, Dish. Thank you again for rating in, and if you missed DishNet, you can catch him again tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern and check out his presentation of the cards. Well, yes, let's get to it. Let me switch screens here and bring on the main screen with the temporary banner here, the HAWC Report with a C. Yes, with a C. And we'll find out exactly what that C means in just a minute. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Hope again you're having a wonderful Thursday. Let me get that off there as we welcomed everyone in from the world already. I am Laptop Hound. Yeah, I stream once in a while, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. I got to go through and do my regular opening here. Speaking of AI, we've got some AI glitches in the Matrix right now. We have the Babe. The Babe has come back to 2023, and he is going to play for all major league teams over the course, one per week. He's been in Arizona. He's been in Baltimore. He's been in Atlanta. And just this last week, he made his way back to Boston, where he hit 51 home runs in the 2023 environment. So yes, next week, Babe heads off to Chicago, where he'll play for the Cubs and play for the White Sox as he works his way through the league to see if he can break his individual 60 home run record. And of course, some giveaways as well. Vasherized one week. Tune in Tuesdays for Babe in the Matrix series. And of course, this Tuesday, there will be no Babe in the Matrix as I, with you guys, hopefully tuning in, celebrate a couple huge milestones in my Twitch career. If you call it a career, 1,000 followers recently hit, and it will be episode number 100 on Tuesday. Yes, 100 on Tuesday. I'm not as old as some other streamers that have been on for a while, EVC, but hey, I am up to 100. I'm up to triple digits on Tuesday. There will be giveaways. There will be guests. There will be reminiscing about the previous 99 episodes. So book time off work, send the kids outside to play, lock up the dogs so they're not disturbing you. Tune in Tuesday around 1:15 Eastern for a special Laptop Hound 100 episode celebration. And hey, if you stumbled across this stream because you were watching Mario Golf and your favorite Mario Golf streamer was streaming OOTP stuff and sent you here, well, hey, welcome. This is OOTP, Out of the Park Developments, not Out of the Park Bowling. That might be a future endeavor. So Out of the Park Developments with the best, bar none, the best baseball simulation on the market. If you haven't tried it out yet, go to that website, check it out, scroll down. You can go to the forums, you can go to the Discord, you can listen to the different podcasts, you can purchase the game on Steam, on Mac, on PC, all that kind of fun stuff. And if you're a hockey fan, hey, they got the hockey version too. Franchise Hockey Manager, number 9, you can save on the bundle if you get both of those together. And have you got your merch yet? I haven't seen any of you guys post any pictures wearing your merch other than Kidneys. Last week when he was doing one of his wonderful interviews, he had his OOTP 21 t-shirt on. Yes, you can get your OOTP merch, coffee mugs, which of course would be something I would get if it was a larger size coffee mug, because I have the big Yeti here. You can get your hoodies. You can get your little stickers, to decals to put on your laptop or on your car. Lots of cool things there on the merch shop. Check it out. And yeah, send me a Discord message if you do get one of those merch items, because they look pretty cool. And they're all geared towards OOTP 24. PAX. I saw Dish post this a little earlier. There is Dish there in his wonderful, wonderful pose with the Diamond Pack special. Haven't checked out what the special is, but you can get that. And speaking of packs, yes, there will be some winners at the end of the episode, giving away 15 packs, 10 to one user, 5 to another. No, I'm not giving away diamond packs. Who do I look like? Rich Grisham? No, I don't give away diamond packs or perfect packs. I am giving away standard packs to 2 different people at the end of today's stream. So stick with it. All right. This is the moment of the show where usually I bring in the icebreaker. And typically in the past, it's been kind of a Zoomer Gen X, the better generation. And you might remember I had, this old guy on stream, Your Kidneys. And unfortunately, he's got his, his feet up, slippers on, cold beverage in hand, probably a few ice cubes in it, just enjoying post-HAWC life. So that means I had to bring in a replacement. And, you may be saying, well, wasn't that easy, Lap, to bring in a replacement for Your Kidneys? No, I had to scour the earth, and I couldn't, just look at North America, South America, Africa, went to Australia, couldn't find anything there. So eventually I found a small little place in Europe where someone was willing to come on. And I'd like to introduce you to the C in the HAWC Report, Mr. Charles, who you might know better as the guy with the Warbot, TBD. Charles, welcome in. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. It's always good to get the call up. You spend all these years streaming in the minors, just waiting for that one chance, and
I'm still in double A. I'm still in double A, Charles. So I hear you. I know, there's reputations of streamers out there that I'm working my way up to, and we're all no Mr. Beasts, that's for sure. But hey, we're grinding away in the minor leagues. So Charles, if you don't know, Charles is from USA originally, correct?
Yep. Born in Boston, grew up around Philly.
And made his way, for some reason, over to a beautiful country known as Denmark. And I believe you're kind of around the Copenhagen area, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm an academic. So as an academic, you tend to move around a lot just because it's part of what you do anyway. And, it's part of where the jobs are. So the Danish government has been really nice about funding astrophysics research, and we got a fun institute here. And so I've kind of ended up here.
So you lost me at Astro. That just kind of lost me there in terms of what that all means. I've heard of Astro Boy, and I've heard of, Astro wasn't Astro on the Jetsons. Astrophysics is like way up there, but it sounds really important, whatever astrophysics is. So tell us a little bit about cultural life differences between where you were in the USA and Denmark. I know being an academic, kind of a little different lifestyle, but in terms of the culture, the people in Copenhagen compared to the USA.
So first off, I'd say if you're planning on coming here, definitely come during the summer. It's it's kind of a fun place as a tourist for a few days. People are friendly and things like that. So, definitely have. That does not look like Denmark.
And food wise,
It's in Tivoli. That's okay. There we go.
food wise, is it pretty similar? Or are there some crazy things that people in Denmark eat that you might not find in the US? Because in Canada, we have poutine, right? Poutine. We have cheese, fries, cheese curds, gravy. Sometimes we have pulled
Wait,
pork or
I
shredded
didn't know
beef.
you have. I didn't know. Wait, do you have poutine in Alberta? I thought that was like a Quebecois thing. Is that an Albertan thing too?
The what?
Poutine. Do you have that like in the
Yeah.
prairie too? Okay.
Oh, of course. It's part of Canada. It's more of a French Canadian dish, and more popular in Quebec. But just like Quebec is known for its maple syrup, we have that in Alberta too. So yeah, it's a second biggest country in the world, but goods make their way across across
That's
the
true.
tracks.
Well, I will say that's one of my favorite things about Canada is that you actually maintain a strategic maple syrup reserve.
That's right. That's right. We do not just give it away. It is a very pricey commodity. And have you ever been to Canada?
Oh yeah, a bunch, I guess. So first off, if you grow up in the Northeast U.S., you end up taking trips to Canada usually. But as an
And
academic, I think you tend to travel a lot. So it's definitely
and
part of the job.
have you been to the Royal Danish Theater? That's what we all want to know because it looks pretty extravagant.
I've been outside, I've not been in, but it definitely is fancy.
All right. Well, again, thanks, Charles, for coming on to the HAWC Report here. As you guys know, if you watch my streams, I like Google Maps. I like Google Earth, and I kind of put little place marks, little stars on places we visited over my streams. We've been to many places in the U.S., been to a few places. I know Andy from Sheffield. We have a few other viewers from the UK, from Ireland, but haven't really talked about Denmark yet. And yeah, Denmark right there, and Copenhagen. Let's zoom in a little bit. I think is this Copenhagen? Might be.
Right around there, yep.
Yeah, right around there. We zoom in a little bit. And yeah, I mean anything that, someone going to Copenhagen is a must see.
See, I think there are things like palaces and museums that are really nice, and I think one of the things I really like about Copenhagen is it's sort of a small enough city that a lot of the places you want to see, if you go to Paris or something, there are a lot of interesting things to see, but they're also like a taxi ride away from each other. And I think it's a little easier here just because the city's a bit smaller. But I
And
think but the outdoor stuff is probably some of my favorite. So generally Denmark's set up so that people commute by bicycle. So you spend a lot of time outdoors, and especially in the summer when the days are real long, it kind of works out real well.
looks like you have a zoo. And do you understand? Do you read? Do you speak? I guess it's Dutch.
Yeah, so I can read and write Danish decently. Speaking's really hard. Partly there's just an accent, and kind of the listening skills are tough, but it's even hard for babies. So when they do studies, Danish babies are some of the last to learn to speak.
Oh wow!
Just because they're trying to like pick up a language from their parents or something, and it's so hard.
And what would you say in terms of the English, speaking population? Or would you find more than 50%, more than 80%? What are we looking at in
Absolutely
terms?
everybody. Yeah,
Everyone's
absolutely
been.
everyone, and that's also why I haven't really learned to speak Danish. So I also, as an academic, you do move. I spent a few years in Japan as well, and in Japan, even if you just go into a shop, you pretty much have to have enough Japanese to be able to survive.
All right.
But in Denmark, everyone's taking English starting in elementary school. Everybody speaks it fluently. You go into a rural area, it doesn't matter. Everybody speaks English. And so at least my experience has been that, if I try to speak to somebody in Danish, they'll like smile and, appreciate the effort, and then they'll just respond in English because it's easier. So you don't really learn the language because you don't get any practice.
And what about the American influence? Do you see a lot of American big business, your Walmart, your Costco's, your McDonald's, or do they kind of, shy away from the big American corporations?
There's McDonald's, but not really the others. McDonald's is here, and I guess some of the restaurant chains or something,
Okay.
but not like the big box stores or anything like that.
All right, so there we go. Denmark, yeah, down quite the distance. If I, click and find out the distance from where I am in Edmonton.
It's probably a ways. I'm guessing that's what, 10, 15 hours of travel.
Well, Charles, if you wouldn't mind, for $1,804, we can do like an in-studio HAWC report.
There you go.
It's only 12 hours and 15 minutes away. It's going down the southern tip of Greenland, and I could be there by, what time is it there now? It's probably around 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I could be there for 8 in the morning. Just wire me $1,804, and we'll go from there.
And to answer the question, chat, we don't talk about the experimentarium.
Oh, is this more astrophysics stuff?
No, it's actually a really nice museum.
Okay, so there we go. We got Hero Driver, and we've got Alex taking up the collection plate. So one nickel at a time, we will make our way to Denmark. Well, let's get to it, Charles. Thanks for the introduction. For those that are not familiar with Charles, he does have his own stream. It is the Warbot stream. And where did you come up with the name for your stream, Charles?
I'm trying to remember. I think we were just sort of kicking stuff around. Probably Mike ABC came up with it because we were sort of thinking we should do a stream. And, we really just sort of had this model that was trying to sort of get things to work out. And Warbot just sort of, I think Mike probably came up with it, but when he came up with it, it just seemed like it was a pretty good one.
All right. Well, hounds, go over there, click that link. I want to see that 514 go up over the next 24 hours. And usually you typically do some streams on Friday, but kind of intermittent, right? You don't have a set schedule for when you stream?
With Kidneys, I was trying to start streaming weekly and go through some of these. I'm also, I think, looking a little bit maybe for another co-host.
Okay.
Because I do think that stream works a lot better with two than it does with one. So if anyone's interested in being a co-host and maybe has the stamina for some long streams, because we seem to have the ability to.
Well, this one from 6 days ago was only 5 hours and 3 minutes. I mean, you're no Tranquil Hill Farms, that's for sure. You're no NASpace, but you definitely are up there.
But so they do it. They're generating new content the whole time.
So community out there, the retirement of your kidneys has opened up a plethora of doors for all of you to jump in and join as co-hosts in the community. So there you go, Warbot TBD on Twitch. Go check Charles out. And again, wonderful in-depth analysis on the cards. Well, let's get into the beginner section. With Kidneys, I like to get, some of those new people that are just joining the game, maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month into it, giving them some valuable advice on how to not get overwhelmed. And one area that I think might overwhelm a few people is the tournaments, because some of these tournaments, they go 5, 6, 7 rounds, and you have to build your team a certain way. You have to create a certain bench situation to have the stamina for your players to make it through these 7-game series, 5-game series, round after round after round. And with many tournaments, there are no days off if you go the full 7 games. So you need that stamina. You need to, build a certain type of roster, your pitching situation, make sure they don't get tired, make sure you have enough pitchers. So Charles, maybe for our beginner section today, if you want to share your screen and talk a little bit about how beginners can create a roster, create a bench that's going to get them hopefully deep into the playoffs.
All right, let me So I'll just pull up a tournament in progress, maybe as an example. Let me just make sure I'm doing this correctly. Hold on.
And yes, bear with us. There's a little bit of, glitches along the way, getting all the information from Dish's stream and then getting everything all organized here. Maybe, a few small little breaks and glitches along the way, but hey, sometimes we go into the matrix. All right, Charles, looks like you're up and ready to go. So
I thought I'd go ahead. Yeah.
No, just talk about the proper bench roster construction.
Okay, so I think first off, the most important thing to keep in mind, a lot of times the kinds of questions people ask me are, what can I do to make sure I win a tournament? And the truth is, baseball is a tough game. The best teams, in baseball are winning like a little under 60% of the time. So nobody's going to do anything. There's nothing magical you can do that's going to make you win a tournament. But there are a lot of things that you can do which will absolutely lose a tournament with, complete certainty. And one of the biggest ones that I see is looking at the depth chart. So I'm just looking here. We're right now in the 4th round of this weekly, or at least some of us are in the 4th round of this weekly. My team is no longer in the 4th round of this weekly. But I'll just click on kind of a random team. And you notice that this team is now playing, what is it? It's 11th straight game with no off day. If they want to win this series, it's going to have to be 14 straight. And so you notice if you look at them kind of in the middle of the tournament, a lot of these players here are a little bit tired. So some of this is the starting pitcher. Well, that makes sense because this starting pitcher, he just threw 99 pitches yesterday. So of course he's not going to go for a while. Also, some of the relievers are tired because they threw recently. And what this means is this is why you have a 26-man roster, is you need to be able to make sure that when your players get tired, there's somebody good to come in and replace them. So you'll see, for example, that when you set this depth chart, you're not just setting a starter, but you're setting a backup at every position. And sometimes this can work really well. So this is an example of one that's been really successful because they've had 11 straight games. They haven't had any off days, and they've still got fresh players playing each day. Because when your players are tired, what happens is they just stop hitting. They start making errors in the field. They're basically falling over out there. I'm just looking at the chat. Sorry. Okay, so let me just see if I can find an example. I'm just looking at a few. I'm going to see if I can find an example of one that might be a little bit tougher. Let me actually just click through like a random depth chart. Okay, so here's an example of a depth chart that probably wouldn't work as well. So what we've got here, we've again got some starters, but there are a few things we can immediately see that would be a little bit worrying. So one would be we got to back up second base with somebody, right? Otherwise, when Jack Crooks gets tired, he's just going to keep playing, and he's not going to have any off days, right? He just played every single game in this tournament.
Will the AI typically, Charles, just throw someone in if he gets to a certain level, like if he gets to 40%, 30%, if you haven't adjusted sliders or anything, will the AI just put someone in, or will they keep playing this guy at second base?
The AI is not very good about figuring this out. That's part of the problem. And actually the AI here, actually, I got another good example I can show. Let me do it this way. Hold on. I'm just going to switch to an account where I can make a lineup. So let's say that I were to go sign up for an iron tournament. Okay. We're going to set rosters, and we're going to set the roster really simply. We're just going to let the AI tell me what players you like, make a roster for me. Let's see how it's going to do. Okay. As soon as this loads.
And okay, Chess Safari is asking while we're waiting, do you ever trust the AI to set your lineups and your depth charts?
Well, that's a good question. And that's exactly what we're going to see. Let's say I tell the AI to set up a complete team. Okay, sorry. Set up to activate all the eligible cards and then set up a complete team. Okay. So we just asked the AI, make us a team. Okay. Let's see. How did it do? So it just kind of stuck some players in here and tried to make a depth chart, right? You know what? I did this before and it made a much worse depth chart.
You just have way too many good cards, Charles.
No, it's not the good cards. It just made. All right, hold on. Let me try one more time. All right. Well, all right. I'm just going to show you an example of what would be a bad depth chart. That's probably because I did this before and it was working.
I know when we talked off screen with one of my depth charts, I had Dink as part of my bronze tournaments, and because he plays so many different positions, they would throw him as the first backup in 3 or 4 other positions, which is a bad AI depth chart.
That's a good example. But here, so this would be an example of like a bad depth chart. So it looks like I have a backup at every position. But what's actually happening is, okay, this one. All right, someone's getting a free win in this tournament. What actually happened is Renifo, he's backing up 4 different positions right now. So every time any of these 4 guys gets tired, this is going to be our first choice. Well, what happens if 2 of them get tired at the same time? Well, one of them is going to have to play when they're tired and get even more tired, right? What happens if our guy who's backing up 4 positions gets tired? Well, now again, somebody tired is going to have to play. So one of the most important things that you can do when you're putting a roster together is simply make sure that you have enough backups at every position. And usually a good guideline, see if this one worked a little better. Okay, there's a couple, well, this one's pretty close. So usually a good guideline is you probably don't want the same player backing up more than about 2 positions. And, I can say something a little bit more than that because you can look at how often a player gets tired. So for example, for a catcher, your catcher really only should be playing about 2 games in a row. So whoever your backup catcher is, you probably don't want them backing up more than 1 position. So I'm just trying to read the chat as well.
So you don't want your catcher backing up at first base and DH and all these other positions.
So exactly. So if we said, maybe Tim McCarver should also back up first base, now that's going to be a problem because really when catchers get tired, they get tired real quick. You want to make sure that when your catcher needs to sit, he's sitting and Tim McCarver isn't also trying to be a first baseman or something like that. So that's
other than catchers, Charles, because I think this is really great for beginners. Catchers tire quickly. Is there any other positional player that tires quicker than others?
Yeah, and it's like you would expect from real life. So essentially the players that are doing a lot of running and doing a lot of fielding. So you're in the infield, your shortstop is going to get tired the quickest, followed by your second baseman. In the outfield, it's your center fielder, followed by maybe your right fielder. You can relax a little bit more in left field or at first base, and DH is the one that gets tired. Eventually your DH will get tired, but you can kind of run the same DH a lot of games in a row. Okay. And that's just like you'd expect from real life, right? That, you'd expect kind of the shortstops doing a lot more work fielding than the DH.
All right. And so Brent had a question about how often you should rest your catchers. You're saying your backup catcher come in approximately every 3rd game?
It's about every 3rd game. So what I usually do is if you right click on the player and go to game strategies, there are 2 ways that we can set this. One is we can set everything here. So I can say, for example, bench when he's below 95%. As an example, okay? So that would be one way to do it. And I could set this differently for different players if I wanted to. The other way you can do this is from the overall strategy. I can just set, again, default batting, where it said right here, I can say just bench everybody at 95%, for example, if I wanted to do it that way. There's one other thing where I think this is just something worth thinking about when you put a roster together. I feel like half of the time, remember, you're the GM, not the manager for this team. And half the time what you're doing as GM is trying to tell your not all that clever manager not to do some of the things they really think they should be doing. And the one that to me is the most important, and I wish there were a global setting for this and there isn't, is if you look at the strategy settings for fatigue, you see this checkbox right here that says available as pinch hitter when tired. By default, that is set to yes. And that means if you realize, hey, this guy desperately needs a day off, he's supposed to sit today, and your manager says, okay, he's sitting. Wait a minute. Now it's an important spot. I'm actually going to bring him into the game in the 8th inning. I'm going to have him pinch hit. I'm going to have him go play the field afterward. And suddenly he doesn't get his day off. Plus his backup, also got more tired. And then that becomes really difficult to recover from.
And Duke had a question in the chat. Do players' performances really drop that much at tired?
Yes, absolutely. A lot more than you might think. So the drop off from 100 to 99% maybe isn't so big, but when the player starts getting to 50%, then it's going to be incredibly. Someone actually might have the numbers on this, but I think it's the difference between something like a 300 hitter when when you get him really tired is going to be hitting like 125 or something ridiculous. It's an enormous effect. And it's an enormous effect in the field also. I remember I've had tournaments where I accidentally only ended up with one shortstop. And I got lucky that, the rest of the roster did so well that despite a shortstop that, was basically like dead on his feet, I was still able to run a few rounds. And the shortstop was making something like, 2 errors every 3 games by the end of the tournament or something, like I almost would have been better off, if the manager were allowed to put, somebody who never had played shortstop in his life there. It probably would have been a better choice. Yeah, exactly, Dukeston. If you have a tournament where you accidentally draft one catcher, same thing. By the end of that tournament, that catcher is just, not only useless at the plate, but, also not going to be very good in the field. So I think the most important tip I can give if you're trying to build a roster is, first off, look at fatigue a lot and get backups. And number 2, actually take the time to uncheck this checkbox for every single one of your players. And I wish there were a default setting, but even if there's no default setting, it's really worth getting rid of that checkbox.
And that, I think that is so key because as default, that should be off and then you go in and manually change it. But unfortunately it is on. Maybe in the future, they'll change the default the other way. One question I have, what you're presenting here in terms of fatigue and rest and substitutions, works if you're using kind of the same 8 or 9 guys against the lefties and righties. Does that change much if you're in a platoon situation where you're using your bench a lot more, depending on the pitcher?
That's a really good question. And I think the answer is that one thing where platoons help is because they're more naturally going to give players rest. If you're facing some righties and some lefties, then you're probably going to rest people even accidentally if you had forgotten to do it. But it's still the same thing where you want to make sure that when someone needs rest, then they get a chance to rest. And that's really important. Set the global pinch hitting setting to never. You could do that. The problem is, the problem is there are times like a pinch hitter is good. The only problem is a pinch hitter who's tired means that all the benefits that you thought you were getting, look, anytime you give somebody a day off, there's a reason that one guy's your starter and one guy's your backup, right? So if you have to go to the backup, your team's a little weaker that day. And if you go to the backup and you take that hit, but your manager says, you know what, I'm not going to get rest anyway, just you have to go do it again tomorrow. that, you really want to like convince the manager not to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
And
So I think that's probably the
speaking
biggest with the depth charts.
speaking of tournaments, I mean, there's so many tournaments to choose from, and beginners might want to start at a lower level, an iron or a bronze. Enter the perfect drafts; they're free. You don't have to have your own cards for the perfect draft. Test out those tournaments for yourself personally. I know you're a big tournament player. One of the best, absolutely, in the game. I highly respect your opinions on cards and players and strategies. For you, as a user of OOTP and someone that enjoys the game, what are your favorite tournaments to play in and why?
So I think my favorites by far are some of these caps where they're relatively cheap. And I think the reason is just what I enjoy as a player. So, what I like about the game is trying to build a team that's better than my opponents, right? That to me, that's kind of the fun of the game. And so I think first off, what that means is, there are, as you mentioned, a lot of formats, but I want a format. I want a format where, I feel like everyone's on a level playing field. Everyone has access to kind of the same cards, and doing well comes down to, can you figure out how to build the better roster?
I've got
So
your shared screen up again, Charles. If you want to, maybe go and look at the tournament screen. Is that
sure,
while
I
you're
can do
doing
that.
that, is there a tournament that you've played in that just stands out for you as memorable because you won it or you lost it in games? Like, is there one over the past few months where it gave you the most satisfaction winning it?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually still my favorite is we started this idea of this tournament lab last cycle. And there's now one of these this cycle. There's going to be a new format for it when they do the tournament refresh. I don't know exactly when, but that's coming up. But the idea is you can experiment with a few different formats. And so, I think one of the things that's fun is, kind of changing the rules a little bit and having to figure out how to adapt. So if you look at these tournaments, for example, you see that in addition to having different rules, so like this one, daily diamond cap. So that says that only diamond or below tournaments are allowed. And the cap says also that you can't just put all of your best cards, but you have to make some choices. You'll see that in addition, there are different years. So, this tournament is in 1984. Okay, this one's in 1921. In 1921, baseball looked very different than it does today. So even if you're playing the same cards in terms of like pick the best bronze cards, the best bronze cards for 1921 baseball are probably very different than today. And the version that we tried last year is we basically went back as far as OOTP had data for. And we tried to run a tournament in 1876. And it was interesting. There were a lot of things we didn't expect the first time we did it. So we had games where teams made 10 errors because I guess when you tell players to play without gloves, they're not so good. But it also meant we then had to learn, well, what kinds of players would be good in this environment? If everybody's bad at fielding, do you still want players with really good arms, or do you not even worry about it because the first baseman's not going to catch the ball anyway? You don't want guys that can hit home runs because nobody hits a home run there. But do you steal bases? Do you bunt runners over? How do you kind of handle all this?
And
And
I
I think
agree. I
that's a
think
lot
that's
of the fun.
one of the biggest adjustments that new players to the game have to have is understanding the environment that their tournament is playing in, because the players that you use and the players you draft are going to be different if it's 1905 compared to 2010. So very good point that
Exactly. And the other thing is, I would really encourage everyone that's starting out in this, try some of these. So the way the game is set up, there are an enormous number of these different daily tournaments. They all have different rules. And like I said, some of these would be hard to compete in without a big collection of cards, but some of them would be easy. So if you're competing in an open tournament where everyone's getting to run their league team, you need competitive cards in order to win. But on the other hand, here's a tournament that's, historical iron cards. So the only thing you need to compete in this tournament are, essentially iron cards and below, non-live ones. And you can afford every single player that you want for the build that you need here. So this is just a question of everyone's got the same cards available. Can you go find a team that's going to beat the others? So I think there are a lot of these good formats to play.
And just so new users again are aware, traditional tournaments, you need your own cards to participate. Perfect drafts, you don't need your cards. You draft cards from a database, a pool that they give you.
Yes. Yeah. And perfect drafts, that's another one where you notice for the perfect drafts, again, a lot of these, like this is a perfect draft, but it's actually set in 1922. So that means the players that are going to be good to draft here are going to be quite a bit different. If you're drafting a big power hitter and you run them in 1922 when people didn't hit a lot of home runs, it's probably not such a good choice, right? And similarly, if the thing your pitcher is really good at is preventing home runs, well, most of that's getting wasted in 1922.
Plus, you don't need a 12-man pitching staff. You don't need 5 starters.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Nope. You can run, like 3 starters or maybe, something like that. You can run 3 starters and no bullpen probably if you have to in that format, because that's what teams were doing in 1922.
Exactly. Okay. Well, let's move on, Charles, because again, we do have a lot to cover. Thanks for the tips on tournaments and creating a better depth chart for your tournaments. Let's get on to some of the newer cards that we've seen over the last few days and today. As always, starting with those limited edition cards. And one that came out a couple days ago, as a Canadian, I'm familiar with this person, Rob Ducey, played for the Jays. I think he played for the Expos in 2001 on the Canadian Olympic team. Remember, if it's a white background, usually there are 100 of these available. If it's the black background, typically it's 25 or even 10. So I don't know if today's cards, you've been able to bring them all in.
Yeah, I think I got the card shops updated, so I should be able to look at them.
Okay, so let's take a glimpse at this one first. Good for iron tournaments or not, and then we're on our hard break, so we'll come back after the break, and then you're going to explain, which I find fascinating, you're going to explain the process of modeling and how you compare one card to another and whether it's better or whether it's not better. Because often we hear that question, is this a good card? Should I play it? Is it better than this guy? So you're going to explain it in kind of simple terms, the process that you go through. But you got about 30 seconds here. Give us a quick glimpse on him.
So quick look at Ducey. So first off, it's a 48 overall. And so that means he's eligible not just for iron, because in iron, there are probably some better hitters available. And this is not a very good defender. So you're looking at him probably as a designated hitter, maybe a left fielder. In iron, there are going to be better DHs available. But there are also low iron tournaments where it's 49 and below. So that's probably where you're going to think about playing Rob Ducey. And there, I don't think this is going to be your best DH for most tournaments. But the one thing that looks unique about him is he has this huge BABIP rating. So if you're running one of these older era tournaments, like a 1919 tournament instead of a 2023 tournament, where power is not very important, but you have a lot of balls in play and BABIP is, that's the place that I might think about playing a card like Rob Ducey.
All right. Well, we are up on our break here, so we will be back, guys. Go refresh your beverage, your coffee, go to the washroom, do a little bit of work, whatever you need to do. We'll be back with Charles and a deeper analysis on these cards in just under 3 minutes. All right, we are back in. Thank you, everyone who is tuning in to the HAWC Report here with Charles from the Warbot Twitch stream. Good to have you guys here. Big shout out. Thank you, Chess Safari, for the gifting of the 5 community subs. Thank you. And whoever received one of those subs from Chess Safari is becoming a legend in the OOTP community. He is active with theme teams. He does a lot of research on different theme teams things. He's active in the different streams of all the different affiliates. And yeah, he was extremely active during the marathon, staying up for the, what was it, 40 plus hours, 50 plus hours that we streamed a couple months ago. So thank you again, Chess Safari, for the 5 gift subs. All right, let's get back to it, Charles. And right now we're going to look at how you kind of do your modeling. And we're going to use some new cards as your reference point. Today, Dish announced the Mike Scott limited edition with 25, I believe, of these available. And how do you then go about finding out whether it's a good card, a playable card, and how it compares to previous cards that have been released?
Okay, so first off, I think one of the things that's good to keep in mind is when they give you the ratings on a card, they're trying to just tell you everything about how that card's going to work. So really, if you look at just what's on the screen, that should be all you need to know to figure out, is Mike Scott a good card? So I think the first thing I do when someone shows, just sort of shows it on stream, is I maybe compare it to some cards that I already know something about. So for this Mike Scott, for example, we were discussing there are actually some cards that are very similar that already are getting played in Diamond. So, for example, if you compare him to Bobo Newsom, So if you put Mike Scott up against Bobo, I don't know if there's a good way to show them together or.
Yeah, the Mike Scott, we didn't have the ratings in because it wasn't uploaded to the game yet.
He's not in the card shop yet, or I think it's just now in the card shop. But it.
So you can bring it up on your screen, I guess, and do the compare. I guess unless you need to own the card.
Yeah, I think I probably need to own the card.
Okay, yeah. So we'll just leave this screen up here then. I'll go back and forth.
What I'll do is I can read the ratings while you got that one up. How about that? So Mike Scott for comparison. So his stuff is, so let's just compare Mike Scott to Bobo Newsom and ask, we know Bobo Newsom does play, a lot of Diamond tournaments. You'll see him a lot when he plays. So how does Mike Scott compare with Bobo? Well, I'll just use the overall rating for the moment. Mike Scott's 105. Okay, Bobo's 103. So similar, but a little bit better. Okay, home run prevention. Mike Scott's 97 and Bobo's 95. A couple points better. Pitcher BABIP's a big difference. Mike Scott's 84, which is 14 points better than Bobo's 74. Control, Mike Scott's 67 and Bobo is 63. So again, 4 points better. So when you compare them, what we can see is they're very similar in terms of the profile and the things they're good and bad at, but Mike Scott is just better across the board. So that makes it really easy to compare Mike Scott and Bobo Newsom. Mike Scott's going to be better. So that if Bobo is seeing some play in Diamond tournaments already and is doing okay, Mike Scott's going to be significantly better than that because he's just better everywhere, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when you have profiles, card makeups that are similar like that, yeah, the eye test would be really easy to compare Bobo to Mike Scott. And you would go, yes, okay, easy, Mike Scott's better. But then we look at a card like Burley, who's a 96, another limited edition card, and little different makeup here. So now you have to go to your models, I guess, to see which one is a better play.
Yeah, if you compare Mike Scott and Burley or Bobo Newsom and Burley, what you see is that they're good at different things. Mike Scott has a lot more stuff. He's going to be a lot better at striking batters out. Okay, Burley, on the other hand, has a lot more control. He's going to be much better at not walking batters. So they kind of have different things that they're strong and weak at. And so now instead of just asking which one has the higher numbers, we have to ask, which is more important? And that's where you need a little bit of a model, as well as kind of this recognition that if you ask, one of the things people often ask is sort of, is this card good, right? Is this card good? And the way the game is set up, that's not actually an easy question to answer most of the time. And I can give you an example of what I mean. Let me go back here. Can I share? Let me share the screen again. You play a lot of iron tournaments, you said, right?
Mainly bronze, but yeah, I've played iron.
Right. I'm sorry, Ginny, I meant bronze. Sorry, I meant bronze. I swear I meant bronze. All right. So a lot of the time in bronze tournaments, a couple of your best relievers, you're going to see a lot of Wilbur Wood, and you're going to see a lot of this Kenley Jansen, right? So now I'll ask, and maybe there's a good question to ask chat as well. All right. It's the bottom of the ninth inning. You're trying to hold on to a lead. You got a couple runners on, you got 2 out, which of these pitchers do you want pitching, to the hitter that's going to decide the game?
Okay. I would say is because one's a lefty, one's a righty, won't it depend on the hitter? Lefty or righty?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point, is the answer to that question had really better depend on the hitter. Because you can see some very different hitters in bronze, because part of it's a lefty-righty thing for sure. Okay. In addition to the lefty-righty thing, look, Kenley gives up a lot of home runs. So, you don't really want to throw him against a power guy if you can help it. But, he's really good at balls in play, right? On the other hand, Wilbur Wood's going to keep the ball in the ballpark. He's not going to walk guys so much, right? Plus, there's the righty-lefty thing. So now what I could say is, oh, well, let's look at the hitter, and then let's make the decision. Okay, let's say, again, a couple hitters that you're going to see a lot in bronze tournaments. Let's say it turns out we're facing either Jody Reed or Joey Gallo. Well, the right answer for which of these, the right answer should depend on which of these you're facing, right? For Joey Gallo, with all that home run power and a lefty that just, loves to mash righties, you really don't want Kenley Jansen. You'd much rather throw Wilbur Wood. But for Jody Reed, it's the opposite. The one thing that Kenley Jansen's bad at is giving up home runs, and Jody Reed doesn't hit any of them. So what that means is part of figuring out a model means not just asking, is this card good, but who are the other cards that you're playing against? And given the other cards you're playing against, is this card good?
And as Chess mentioned, we don't have control over that in the game, right? We can't micromanage batter by batter by batter. So I guess you just have to go with a setup where, Kenley's not your ninth inning guy, but Wilbur Wood would be your ninth inning guy. Is that how you would approach it then?
You can't. So the AI manager is usually not quite good enough at making matchups work to just be able to tell it, this is how I'd like you to run it. So you're usually guessing a little bit, but what you can do is you can look at who are the cards everybody's playing. So for example, if you're playing gold quicks, for a lot of the past month or two, most of the really good gold quick starters have been left-handed. And so that means maybe if you're focusing on building a lineup, usually when you build a lineup, you focus on your lineup against righties, because there are a lot more right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers in baseball. And so maybe, the weak side of your platoon isn't going to be as good because you can't put resources everywhere. But if you're playing gold and all the pitchers are left-handed, now the opposite is true. Now I want all of these righties. And so the same happens when I have a model that's trying to figure out which cards are going to be good. I'm not just asking, are the numbers higher? But if I'm comparing something like, would I rather have Mark Burley, who's left-handed, good control, lower stuff, or Mike Scott, who's right-handed and sort of strikes people out but walks more of them? To answer that question, I also have to ask, who are the good hitters in Diamond? And am I going to see a lot of right-handed hitters that match up well against Burley? Or am I going to see a lot of left-handed hitters that match up well against Bobo or Mike Scott?
So based on what your models are showing then, I mean, we don't have Mike Scott, we got Bobo, but very similar. Yeah. what are your models telling you in terms of cards in the game now, Burley versus Mike Scott? Who, if you could only have one of those, who are you choosing?
Right. So my model right now has Mike Scott as being the better of the two. They're both excellent. They're both pitchers that should be, if you had every card in the game, these would be two of your five starters in Diamond, like both of them. But if
Oh,
you could only have one, right now, I'd rather have Mike Scott.
okay. Does your model easily detect who? I mean, Bobo Newsom similar to him. Is there someone else that other people might be using that's similar to Mike Scott? Can you find that out easily?
Let's see. So I think they're going to be, for most of these cards, there's going to be somebody pretty similar, just because pitchers have common shapes. Usually the guys that have a ton of stuff and throw really hard and strike a lot of people out, also the place they suffer is control, just because that's how pitching works. So usually you're going to be comparing Mike Scott against other, power pitchers. So let's see, similar profiles. I've seen a lot of people running Hunter Brown. The future legend has a pretty similar kind of shape. And for Burley's actually a little bit unique, but maybe the closest would be another Wilbur Wood. There's a Mission Edition Diamond Wilbur Wood. And Burley has a similar shape, but it's just a lot better than that card.
Okay. And do your models currently show that, if you could have every card in the game, including LEs, and you picked your starting five, it's pretty much five limited edition starters? Are the limited editions the top five starters in the game for your overall kind of purpose? So we're talking Koufax, Alexander, Scott, Burley, and maybe the Giants guy,
No,
Amaker.
definitely the top limited edition ones have definitely been up there on the pitching side. On the hitting side, not quite as much. So the Huey Jennings, for example, it's a good card, but I don't have that as being your best middle infielder there. But I guess right now, if I had a top five starters, Koufax, Grover Cleveland Alexander, and Atlee Hammaker would probably all be in there. But it's more that there's a big gap between Koufax and Grover. And then Grover and Addy Joss are sort of a little closer. And then there's another big gap to the next set of pitchers.
Okay.
So it's not all the limited edition, but some of the limited edition are really good cards.
Okay. And in terms of regular packable cards, not the LE, Addy Joss, give us maybe one or two other more attainable cards that are pitchers that people could use. Tannehill, is he still another viable option?
Yeah, Tannehill's really good. The Burt Blyleven that just got released is probably going to be good. If you do missions, there's a build a lineup Robin Roberts, and the build a lineup Mickey Lolich. Also, the mission edition Santana that a lot of teams have from the live missions is still pretty playable.
Okay, excellent.
But I think this is something where teams are trying to make good choices. The truth is, none of us is buying every card in the game. We're always trying to figure out which are the ones that are worth going after and which are the ones we can kind of skip.
Okay. All right. Well, let's look at then some of the releases today. Kind of thrown for a little bit of a surprise, 2 weeks in a row that we kind of got extra that we were not anticipating. We thought it was going to be maybe 20 TOPPS cards, and it was a mixture of kind of regular cards with the top cards, very unique with a theme to it. I don't know if you want to go through every single card and the viability with your model and where they fit, whether they're playable. But let's look at some of the bronze and then some of the TOPPS cards. This one here, being a bronze player, if I'm looking at it, obviously, if there's a low bronze or a cap tournament, it becomes maybe a little bit more valuable because it counts for 0 if it's a certain cap level. The eye here is the one that it would be a turnoff for me to even want to use this card just with the low eye. Continue on, Charles. What do you think? Is it a viable card in, let's say, bronze tournaments?
This one, yeah, I think for exactly the reason you said, the eye, means this. The problem is the card's not going to get on base, and it's not really a good defender. So looking at those ratings at third base defensively, I think probably this has to be a designated hitter is the problem. And as a designated hitter, you even more care about, is he going to get on base? So I think this one probably I wouldn't want to play.
In a bronze floor, as Mr. Black is talking about, a lot more viable then versus left.
Let's see. So if it were a bronze floor, I think it would be worth 1 or 2 points maybe to play someone like Ensberg. But I can see exactly what I would do in a bronze floor. The problem is there's still some pretty good bats in bronze. So for example, in a bronze floor at a DH, you can pay 1 point for Gorman Thomas, who's just possibly your best bronze bat anyway. If you want to run a third baseman, there's Sal Bando, where you're getting 84 I or something. You're getting like 90 power, and he plays a little bit better defensively at third base. So I think this one I'd have trouble playing.
Okay. And I mean, as someone learning the game a lot myself, I just find this fascinating, riveting, that we take a card that's just been released and then your modeling can kind of compare very quickly. Is it better than, worse than, equal to? So in this case, you're going to play that Gorman Thomas, you're going to play that Bando more than you're going to play this card here.
Yeah. And because it's bronze and because all of the cards are pretty cheap, I think there's no reason you would end up playing this card because you can get the others for, 30 points or something.
Okay. So let's look at another floor. This time the Markakis card, right fielder from the Braves. Obviously, the eye's much better. The power's a lot lower in a game that seems to still be favoring power and eye. No speed. Outfield, for a bronze card, I guess it's decent. How about this one? What's your model saying about playing a Markakis?
So I think it's closer, especially if you're willing to platoon him so that he's only playing against righties. I think in the modern era, that complete lack of power still means that there are several cards I'd rather run. One of the ones I'm running a lot in bronze floor is the live Taylor Motter, who plays a ton of different positions and has a better bat, and you could even stick him in right. But I think the place this card gets more interesting would be in one of these really early eras. If you have a dead ball tournament, and the bronze floor right now is in 1921. So that's kind of an era where power doesn't matter so much, whereas the things Markakis does well become a lot more important. So I think in 1921, I would be a lot more interested in running the card. And if we were to go back and have, like an 1890 kind of tournament where errors in the outfield start to become really important, then that enormous outfield error rating becomes really interesting too.
Excellent.
So
good.
I think in an early era, I like this card, but modern era, I don't think I'd play it.
There you go. So early era card, 1922, earlier errors would definitely benefit using that one. And then we go to a reliever, bronze reliever, Brandon Finnegan. Pitcher Babbitt, really good, which we all like. Very splitty card, which we see a lot of in the cards this year. Lefty. Again, what do the models say about using this in some sort of bronze format?
So I think, so that's a card where, first off, if you think you can manage to match him up against lefties, this is going to be an excellent bronze reliever. And so how you use this card, a lot of it comes down to, do you trust your manager to use him the way he should be used? If you do, then this is going to be a strong lefty and someone that probably should end up in almost everybody's bullpen. On the other hand, if you don't trust your manager and he's going to mostly face righties because there are a lot of right-handed hitters out there, then the splits sort of make it too difficult. So that one just comes down to, do you trust your manager?
Okay.
I'm probably going to try to run the card, but I'm going to see, how the manager actually uses it.
All right. And just getting back to our pitchers, I just saw a comment here by Iridescent. So Joss is still the best non-LE card to go for pitching. I would say so, correct?
I think so, yeah. And if you're, We can talk about, maybe that's a good one for a different stream to kind of ask,
Okay.
how should you decide, whether you're willing to pay a lot of points for a card or not? Because you can't pay a lot of points for every card.
And we can compare them to Blyleven a little bit later too, and maybe
Yeah.
see where they're at. All right, next bronze one we've got is first baseman Brett Wallace. So many good first basemen out there in bronze tournaments that you're likely going to play. Maybe Joey Gallo. Good defense, which again may help a little bit, but I'm not playing this card. I don't know what kind of tournament he would play well in, but there's just so many choices at this level that I can't find a spot for him. What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think they're just, first base, you're usually just running this excellent bat. And this is just not an excellent bat. And look, I think that's okay. I mean, if I think it would be bad for the game if every single card that gets released is always suddenly the best card at its position. You want some cards to be good and last a while, and you want to have to decide which are the cards you want to pick up. But this is one I think you can skip.
And again, for those that have theme teams, Astro theme teams, or letters in the alphabet theme teams, I mean, that gives those managers that, want that fun aspect, and they don't care about performance as much as having the fun. These kind of cards are geared towards them as well. So yeah, by no means are they useless and can't be used anywhere. Someone will find a use for every single card.
But I don't think I'd play this in a tournament too much. Actually, the problem is, even if you have an Astros themed team, the Morgan Ensberg bronze is a really good bronze. So I think that's your bronze third baseman, maybe.
Okay. Another bronze. I've got a couple more bronzes before we move on to the golds and higher. Broxton, center fielder. In a center field, I'm always looking for that strong defense with a little bit of bat, but I'm willing to sacrifice some bat for defense. We've got, Fielder Jones, who a lot of people use. We've got the new Billy Hamilton in bronze. A lot of people are using. Again, just one of those cards that I think there's better cards out there, but maybe, again, is this useful in a floor situation, in an early era situation?
So I think for a floor situation, probably not, but it's close. And I'll explain why, because it comes back to the depth chart thing we were looking at before. So what's really nice about this card in a bronze floor is not just that he's free, but there are things he does that are useful. The bat's going to be the best 60 overall bat for a center fielder. He has excellent base running, so you can, that's always a nice thing to have off the bench. But there are two big problems. The first is he's not good enough defensively to just want to run him as your starter, right? So you're always looking at him as a backup. But remember what we said when we were looking at building a depth chart is you need to be able to take 4 or 5 total bench players and cover all of your positions. So let's say you have 5 bench players and one of them's a catcher. Your other players need to all be able to cover at least 2 positions if they're going to be a backup. And so I find that I can just never build a roster when my backup center fielder doesn't play something else. So it says he can learn other positions, but so if this card played left, center, and right, then I might be able to use him as a backup in a bronze floor cap, because now he can back up a bunch of different positions. But if the only thing he backs up is center, now that means one of my other guys has to back up 3 positions. So for that reason, I don't think I could use him as a backup.
Excellent point. And with tournaments, if they are, showing on the card that they can play other positions, but they're at a low, for instance, right field 2 out of 55, he gets a 55 out of 55 at that right field position. But if it just says is qualified to learn positions, it's a 0. Am I correct in that?
That's right. What can be qualified, what can be learned means for a tournament is if you're desperate, you can tell him go try to play right field. His skill's going to be 0, but it's still better that he has that ability, because you can at least rest your starting right fielder and just tell him to go try it. Whereas you can't tell him to just go try shortstop.
And speaking of shortstop, we've got one that looks, really good defensively. I kind of use Woody Held as one of my shortstop. Herman Long, I think, is another one that can play shortstop. We've got Jody Reed that can play multiple positions. Batting, yeah, this one, I mean, for defense, looks pretty solid for me. What do you think about his role in bronze tournaments?
So modern, I still don't like the card because the things that he's good at are not the things that, he doesn't walk, he doesn't hit home runs. And generally you want a bat to do at least one of those just because right now, the bronze fielders are good. Herman Long, Woody Held, the Jody Reed we looked at before, these are all cards, particularly Long and Held, where they're both good fielders and they give you something useful with the bat. They each have some power, they have a little bit more eye, and this card doesn't. So I think the only place this card might start to beat one of those would be in a really early era where just BABIP is everything and power isn't.
Okay. So those were our bronze cards. So little bit of use for some of them, but again, we have so many of the meta bronze out there that play much better than them. We did only have one iron card, I believe, today, and that was this one here, the Lee May. I do not play, or not iron, silver. I do not play any silver tournaments. I have no, reference in terms of good cards, not good cards. 79. What do you think about the Lee May?
Give me a sec, because I had forgotten to run silver, but we can start just looking at the card. And I think even by eye, you can probably see that the bat isn't nearly as good as a lot of the bats that are out there. So I think yeah, okay, yes, and that's what the model's saying as well, is just that there's some incredible bats out there right now in the outfield, and this is just pretty far behind them. And he's not a good enough fielder to make up for it, right? Still sort of an average fielder. Yeah, Elijah Green, for example, is a really good fielder for his bat and has this excellent bat.
Are there a couple like top end silver fielders that you would recommend kind of being the, better, much better, or in meta kind of silver ones?
I think Elijah Green's really nice because Elijah Green not only plays in silver, but also there are a lot of tournaments that are OOTP era only that he plays in. And so I'm finding that I use him in a lot of builds. So he'd maybe be the first one I'd look at. But yeah, I don't think this is an essential card to get.
Okay. Well, let's move on to gold. I think one of the more popular tournaments that people play in is those quick golds. We did get a lot of golds, including a lot of the TOPPS cards today that are golds. And again, I'm assuming you've run the gold already. Yep. So we start with Acuna Jr. I believe this is his second or third card in the game so far. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right. He's got. Does he have one more or two more? I'm trying to remember. So let's see. So first off, we have a 3-position outfielder, but really with 61 range, I think this is either a left fielder or a DH, and that probably is going to kill the card as far as wanting to use it, because there are just so many cards out there right now that are better defenders and still have at least as good of a bat. So, and some of them include things that are pretty easy to get through missions. So for example, the build a lineup, Carlos Beltran, I think is just a little bit better than this card, like across the board.
For the gold card you're referring to?
Yeah, the gold Beltran.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think this one probably is not one I'd be excited about getting quickly.
Okay, let's fly through a couple others because we do have some diamond and a perfect to go through. Sure. Tyler Clippard. So again, a lot of relievers released today. Again, we talked off stream about that really high pitcher BABIP, which again, outlier because we don't see a lot of pitchers with this pitcher BABIP. Kenley Jensen maybe being one of them. Is it playable though, based on the other things that we see here? For me, just the eye test, I would say really good reliever, not very splitty at all. I can trust him against lefties or righties. So for me, this would be a must-have in a gold, quick. But let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think that's where I'd see it too. I also, just in general for bullpen cards, I love ones like this that even have a little bit of a reverse split, because what that means is, in the late innings, the manager's going to think, hey, it's a righty, I should put a lefty in against him, and he's actually better against lefties. Uh, so I think that's really nice. The other thing is I might find myself using this card as an opener for the same reason.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember in last year's version of the game, there were some of these starting pitchers. I can't remember offhand the specific ones, but there were some that had that reverse split, which you could use as openers. Absolutely. So low stamina, he's not going to go very long for you, but maybe an inning. But definitely
Yep.
someone that you might want to use in bronze or gold tournaments. And we're probably causing the card shop value to go up right now, talking about some of these players. All right, next gold one is Archie Bradley from the Diamondbacks, another reliever. Different makeup here. The home run is a lot higher, so different types of tournaments might play better. Again, looks like a solid card to me. Looks like a card I might have in my bullpen as a middle reliever. Little bit splitty, but still, I think, an effective bullpen card.
Yeah, so I think I have this one, yeah, playable, but not quite in the top 10 or so, because just that pitcher BABIP is low enough that there are now cards that are going to do pretty similar things out of the bullpen, but a little bit better.
Okay.
But it's not a bad card. It's one that if you stuck in your bullpen, certainly won't be a disaster. There's kind of there's a point that the pitchers end up, like with most things, the real top of the distribution are extremely good, and then there's like a big lump that are similar, and this is somewhere in that lump, but it's not one that I would race to get if I already had a good gold bullpen.
Right.
I think that's what I would do.
So you're definitely going after the Clifford before you go after this one here.
Yeah.
All right, Diamond. Let's take a look at some of these Diamond, because that beautiful blue coloring, usually when we see that, we immediately think really good card. But again,
There
you
were a bunch
gotta,
of diamonds here, right?
yeah, we do have a bunch. Sometimes the number on the card doesn't indicate the performance, as we've seen many times before. So low power, low I, to me, that's a red flag right off the bat. Defense, not that great. Again, another red flag. So you're getting some speed, a little bit, and you're getting that avoid K, gap power. For me, I wouldn't play this because, again, so many other options. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and also it's not just that. So one problem is, as you said, that there are a lot of other options that are going to be a little bit better, and the other is there are a couple of just absolutely excellent cards that exist right now at second base and diamond. There's the future legend Anthony Volpe is just an incredible card that has been so much better than the rest of the second baseman in diamond that card may play several more months. And so Altuve just kind of still is not close to a card like that.
Okay. Yeah, those future legends, boy, a lot of those are really good cards. One more gold that I want to reflect back on, and that was the Juan Soto card, right fielder. Probably the best eye we've seen so far today. It's very, very splitty, though. So is this a card you're going to use in a platoon situation in gold tournaments against the righties?
So I think anyone who's seen my stream kind of knows how much the model ends up just loving eye, and a lot of this is just because OOTP was sort of built in the same era that, like the A's and the whole Moneyball thing happened. And like, ultimately he's going to get on base. It's kind of that idea. So I think this card is good enough that I would be willing to even platoon him to be able to DH him versus righties probably. It depends a little bit what you do with a couple of the builder lineups, because Chipper Jones is a switch hitter, Lance Berkman's a switch hitter, and they're both going to be excellent. But the other big difference is that there are low gold tournaments where 84 is the cap. And in a low gold tournament, it's not even close. Then this is just the card you want.
Okay. And EVC had a couple questions there talking about Volpe. Does he play in OOTP era? and OOTP era perfect draft. Altuve might play.
So OOTP, yeah. So all the future legends are eligible for the OOTP era stuff. So I think there's actually an OOTP era weekly that's starting, I believe, right now, and I'm running Volpe in that one as an example.
All right.
Yeah, I think Isadafo running Joyce. Joyce has even more eyes, so I'm never going to complain. Running Joyce either. I think you could go either way.
All right. Another reliever, closer this time, Josh Hader. Now, off screen, you were talking about this being a really interesting, card, and maybe it's the makeup of it, the different splittiness of it. Tell us your opinion about Josh Hader.
Okay, so first off, there's one thing that I don't know about the card that's going to be really important to evaluating this long term, which is the way the ratings are done. There's a cap on what they show. So one place that this is easy to see is overall ratings. Some cards, they put 100 on and they're like barely better than 99s, and some cards are way, way better than 99s. And they both get shown as 100, right? They're just a perfect. And the same thing's true with some of these other ratings. As best I can tell, even if you had, perfect pitcher BABIP, even if you never allow a single hit, it would be listed as 128. So one of the things that I have no way of knowing about this card, we'd have to actually look at how it performs, is that 128 128, or is that 128 like 160 that's being shown as 128? And I think that's one where we're going to have to see how they perform to figure out what's really in there.
So when you're modeling,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I mean, in your modeling compared to, the Kenley, and compared to the Adams, compared to the Joe Barry, where does he kind of rank in terms of the better closers or relievers in the game?
Okay, so first off, in Diamond, he's really splitty, and that's going to be the big problem. Is he does have to face righties. So if you were allowed to only run him versus lefties, him and Lavelle are just, it's kind of only those two that you'd ever be looking at the moment. The fact that he has to play a lot of righties, I think, is even tougher for a closer, because you can get through maybe the 7th inning and people won't always pinch hit. But if you try to do this in the 9th, you're always going to see whatever pinch hitters, they're going to empty the bench if he's trying to save a game. But still, in Diamond, I'm always running this card because he's still good enough versus right that I'm gonna take the fact that he just absolutely clobbers lefties. In league play, I think it's going to be tougher just because there are more options available and there are more good right-hand hitters available. And the other problem with league play is right now, what Build a Lineup did is it meant that once you get actually a good question, because I don't know where this comes in. I'm going to guess it's somewhere around Gold League that this starts to come in, that you see mostly Build a Lineups as the starters. But the thing about Build a Lineups is they're all switch hitters. And so if you have a very splitty card like Josh Hader, he's always facing righties and they don't even have to pinch hit. So you should almost only look at him versus right if you play him in the league.
All right. Now, you mentioned that 128 kind of being maxed out on the card, and you said it needs to undergo some testing and use. How long is it, or can you, after, let's say, a couple of weeks, can you pinpoint what his real pitcher BABIP would be versus lefties, or just kind of ballpark figure it?
I think you could get it pretty well. So there are a few approaches people take to building rosters. Maybe the best tip I can give if you're just starting out, like I have a tournament format. How should I build a roster for it? The simplest thing you can do is when you load a tournament, you also get the free information of getting to look at the rosters of every other team in the tournament. So you should just look at the other teams in the tournament, look at some of the teams that are doing well, see the cards that everybody else is playing, and that's a good way of getting started. But the trade-off is, it means if I want to know, is Josh Hader good, I don't just have to run him myself and collect data. If I play a diamond tournament and there are 64 teams in a daily diamond tournament and 40 of them run Hader, I've got 40 tournaments worth of data on him already, not just one. If you're playing quicks, just think about how many times you get to look at that player if you add them all up. And this is, again, something where I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm kind of modeling in a different way. But there are a lot of people in the community that if you just go on the main Discord and ask, hey, does anyone have some stats for which pitchers are doing well in Diamond? People are usually happy to give it to you.
And Evil Smoky Bear asked the question, well, isn't he still good enough against the righties in the important things? And I think, again, as someone still learning the game, to me, it would be, well, if he's up against a righty and the righty gets a hit, it likely might be a home run. I mean, that might be the issue I have. Is that right?
Yeah, well, he'll give up a lot of home runs. And also, I think when you ask which are the things you care about, that's kind of what I was mentioning before, that it depends a little bit on who the hitters are. So if he's against a hitter, if he's against a right-handed hitter that has a ton of eye and a ton of power and, has no BABIP and doesn't get singles anyway, this isn't the guy that you want to run. If you're against like a right-handed version of Ichiro, a guy that just is great at finding a way to kind of hit the ball between fielders, that's the guy you want to run Hader. Then I'm happy to run him against the right-handed version of that, because then he is good at the things you care about.
Yeah. So if we were able to, again, micromanage down to every batter and every inning, there's definitely places you would put him in and not put him in, depending on who he's facing. And in online leagues for that, online leagues where maybe managers can make those instant timing decisions. Again, these cards aren't in online leagues, but that's where you have that luxury of putting him in the right situation. So,
all right. And otherwise, what you do is you really hope that you can trust your manager. So one thing I would say is, if you run this card, I'd probably try to run him as a specialist.
In the primary role?
I think so, yeah, because that's really what I'd like him to do, is just face lefties. But the manager's not always so good at using specialists.
Yeah. Specialists aren't kind of what we would hope them to be in the game right now, because don't they have to face a minimum of 3 batters?
It's 3 batters or end an inning. So maybe you roll the dice and you bring him in with 2 outs and you hope that he gets the lefty before,
Yeah. Okay. Another reliever, Roy Face from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And here we look at, again, his non-splitty stats here. So again, a guy you could trust in the bullpen, whether it's left or right hitters. Home run BABIP, really good. Not top notch, but really good. Control, really good. I like this one. I definitely would use it in Diamond. Maybe the stuff a little too low. What do you think?
Yeah, so I have this right now as probably being the best Diamond reliever, in part for the reasons you said. He's good at everything, and the control's excellent, and he's also not splitty. So this is a guy you can use as a closer or in some kind of situation where you expect to see a lot of pinch hitters and still be happy. I think similarly in league play, all the switch hitters maybe don't get to him. There is still a big gap between this and the very best relievers available. But I think I've got him looking, something like about the maybe 6th to 8th, somewhere in there, best reliever available. So you certainly can play him in the league if you get him.
All right. So even if you're in perfect league, this is a card that can help your team out. He could play in your bullpen in league.
I think so. I think that also would depend on things like what park you're running, because a lot of those builds, you're now doing things with the park that dictate, because that's the other thing. We talked about which ratings are important. Well, if you're playing in Coors Field, probably your home run prevention is a little more important than if you're playing, at sea level.
And I hear different opinions about hold runners. I know your kidneys is very, high on the hold runner category and love pitchers with high hold runners. What's your opinion about the importance of that category?
I think it's really important in tournaments because people usually aren't microing all of the sliders. So you remember I showed you those sliders before. You can set individual sliders on all of your base runners to try to be very careful about when they steal and when they don't. And often people do that for a league setup because you kind of only have to do it once. But I'm not doing that, just honestly, given the number of different tournaments that exist and the different formats and the different builds, I'm not kind of setting all of those sliders individually for every card. And so it becomes even more important when people are just kind of letting the runners do whatever they want. Then he's going to start picking a lot of them off.
Okay. All right. One more diamond card, and then we have our perfect card from today. Tony Perez from the Cincinnati Reds. Again, good first baseman. Green, blue, splitty, better against the lefties. I think a card that can, definitely platoon against the lefties, probably play both sides of it in certain situations. Tell us where he fits on your model. Tony Perez.
It's a really good card, but I have the bat is just bare. Well, actually, the bat's even a bigger gap. The problem is that a lot of players right now in Diamond or even low Diamond, because he's eligible, are running Rudy York. And Rudy York has like 25 more points in power and another 15 points or so in I in return for a little bit less BABIP. So the advantage that Tony Perez has over Rudy York is mainly that he's better defensively. But first base, since I'm usually punting defense, I think I'd still rather run Rudy York. But this is a really good card. And if you don't have Rudy York, I would definitely play it. I'd probably platoon it with one of the good lefty bats.
And EVC's asking, in terms of your pitchers, starters, putting starters in the bullpen, do you prefer picking starters over relievers in the pen for league play?
I think I end up with some starters in the pen just because, when you're making however many your best pitchers are, usually some of your 7 or 8 best your 7 or 8 best guys that aren't in the rotation, some of them will usually be starters converted to the pen. But I guess the way I've always looked at it is the ratings on the card are really the ratings on the card. It is the case that when you move a starter to the pen, you need to recalculate their stuff rating a little bit. And the way that works is that out of the bullpen, they're essentially only using their 2 best pitches. So if you have, I don't know if you have one of this, or we're about to look at a starter. So if you put up the Bly 11 you're about to or something, if you just put that up and then you can sort of see.
I'll put up Mike Scott.
Sure. Well, yeah, whichever one. So if you were to run Mike Scott out of the pen, for example, he's never throwing that screwball or that curveball or that splitter, which just aren't nearly as good as his best pitches. So he's going to end up throwing, essentially just, I guess the slider and the changeup maybe. And that's going to mean his stuff rating goes up. So he's going to strike out more guys than he would as a starter.
All right. Well, we are on a hard break here, Charles. So our last break of today, when we get back, we'll look at that Bly 11 perfect card. We'll have our giveaway, our contest. We'll have some closing thoughts. Thanks, guys, for hanging in there. And we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Stay tuned.
Cool.
All right. We are back for our last little segment here. Welcome in. Again, if you're coming in late, this is the HAWC Report with Charles from the Warbot. Learning so much today about not only the new cards, but the older cards in the game too, and where they are best to be used. So before we go on to our perfect card, Charles and I were working on a little kind of quiz. It involves a Twitch extension. I just want to see if it does work right now. We kind of played around with it, may or may not work. So I'm going to see if it shows up. I do use different software, not OBS, so I don't know if this is going to show up in the stream. Right now it's showing sending rules to players.
Looks like it popped up.
Looks like it popped up. All right, let's
I think so.
Wait for the chat a little bit and see if you guys are getting instructions here. I think it's working. I think it works on mine. So we're going to have a little competition here with some baseball questions before we end off with our perfect card. See how well you guys know your game. What you need to do, though, is when you click on your screen on the right-hand side, you'll see a little quiz box, very, very tiny box in the middle on the right-hand side. You need to click that and go to, what is
Manage access, and then just say grant, I think is all you need.
Yes. So manage access and then click a grant. So that way your Twitch username will show up. Let's see. Again, first time we're kind of trying this, seeing if it works. So if you want to participate in this quiz, hint, hint, you should participate in this quiz. Let's go to that little box on the right-hand side and click that, and then link or give access to your Twitch name. Bailey, it's right in the window there. You'll see kind of a little purple box. It's really tiny on the very right side in the middle right. You should see it there.
I think it just appears when you put your mouse over the window, it looks like. I'm just trying it.
Okay. And it says quiz kit. When you put your mouse over the window on the right-hand side, you should see a little box. And EVC's helping out on your desktop. Put your mouse over the far right and it should appear. Yes, quiz kit. If you click that, and then Charles, they want to go to...
Just click it, manage access, and all you have to do is say, yes, you can see my user ID, because that way we get to see who wins.
There we go. So it seems to be working for a lot of people. So we'll give people a little bit more time to do that, because like I said, it's a fun little quiz with a theme to it, and there may or may not be a prize given to this.
Do we give them a hint as to the theme, or are they just going to figure it out?
No. We're not going to be that nice to them. No hint about the theme.
All right.
So we'll wait for a few more people here. EVC's helping out. Thank you, EVC. On mobile, there's a box just above the chat on the right side. So if you're on a desktop or mobile.
And basically, if you guess wrong, then you lose points. If you guess right, you get points. The quicker you are, the more points you get. Most points wins. It's pretty simple.
Are all answers either Canadian or Denmarkian? No. No, they are not. That is not the theme. And yes, it is a time quiz. You get 10 seconds per question. And the quicker you answer it, you either gain more points if you're right or lose more points if you're wrong. So I would read quickly and answer as quick, especially if you know the answer. Chess Safari doesn't see it.
I feel like I could try to make a screenshot, or maybe we should just. What do you think?
We'll just go ahead with it with the people. You'll put the answer, I believe, Charles, that you just click on the answer when it comes up.
I think you're just going to be able to click on it. Yeah. You don't answer in chat. You're just going to be able to click on it.
All right. Well, let's try this out. Again, this is the first time we've tried this, so let's see how it goes. You should see a question pop up now, and there might be a little bit of a lag, but you should still get the full 10 seconds.
Well, we'll see how good chat is at their baseball knowledge.
All right, there's question number one. And yeah, the screen I'm watching it on, there is a little bit of a lag. So hopefully that won't impact things too much. Okay, and then we reveal the answer. Hey, it seems to be working. We had several people, 20, 27, 33.
And over half of us got it right, so that's pretty good.
There you go. Okay.
170 pitches also is just, I feel like your arm would fall off, but
yeah, that's a lot of pitches. And then what I can do is I can show the different results here. So contestant 383 or contestant 303 couldn't find that little section. So you still get to play, even if you couldn't link your name to it.
But if you if you can find it, it'll switch your name in for the next. If you can find it, then it'll show your name.
Question number 2. White Sox, Mets, Rockies, Yankees. So just a fun little thing we're trying out here with Kidneys and I. We did the generational showdown. Not much of a generation gap between Charles and I. I'm at the beginning of Gen X and Charles is kind of at the end of the Gen X. So we're both kind of Gen Xers, but at opposite ends. All right, 10 of you. Oh, so this one was a little bit tougher.
Okay. Well, that was probably a harder one. Yeah. Okay. A lot of people went for Harold Baines. Okay.
Interesting. So, remember, there is a theme to this. On to question number 3. A lot of Red Sox questions. So if you know your Red Sox history.
Yeah. See, it's my fault for, being a Sox fan, it made it easier to come up with some of these.
Charles made these up. Please do not send me any hate messages if you don't like the Red Sox. All right. I'm curious how many will get. I got this one wrong.
Well, you got to show the score. You got to show the scoreboard after too, I think.
Yeah,
so.
I will. All right. The answer is very well done.
That was one of the horrible moments in Red Sox history. Both him and Carlton Fisk, they lost because they just didn't send them their contract by the deadline.
All right, so here we have our total scores. Looks like more of you have figured out how to link your name into their embezzler. 78 with the lead. Dukeston, GCAM. All right, and F2P had the highest score there on that one question. 45 of you are involved in this. Question number 4. This is a tough one.
See, the thing is, you got to be a pretty good pitcher to be allowed to give up that many home runs, right? You got to be bad to give up the home runs, but you got to be pretty good for your team to keep running you out there, especially 2 years in a row.
Yeah. All right. Here is your answer. Whoa, we did stump a lot of people on this one, Charles.
Did you get them? Oh, we got almost, wow, 5 right out of 40?
45, 40, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
All right, well, let's see how that affected the scores here. Mr. Black was the earliest in with the most points. Bailey in second, and total Mr. Black still has a pretty comfortable lead over GCAM. All right, let's go on to the next question.
Mr. Black makes a good point. You can figure out which OOTP card had the low movement and guess that's...
Yeah.
Let's see.
He did not believe in dinosaurs in a interview that he had. How many of you remember this strange interview? Well done, chat.
I'm guessing we did pretty all right. Yeah, all right. Chat got that one, huh?
Well done. All right, let's see if Mr. Black is still in the lead.
Exactly, embezzler. That's it, Nick. Because the dinosaurs aren't in the Bible, he said, and so therefore did not believe in dinosaurs.
Well, GCam with the quick result there. He jumped into the lead over Mr. Black. Embezzler in third, Isidafo in fourth, and IBDB in fifth. All right, we got 50 of you entered now. Question number 6. A 7-player trade, including Hanley Ramirez. Who was part of that trade?
I think Chal could do pretty well on this one. This is a little more recent. So
One specific affiliate streamer would do really well on this one.
that is true.
And results are in. And I think that's
well done, chat. Yeah.
Well done. Our most successful answer so far. 20. Got that one there. Let's see how that affected the overall leaderboard. Contestant 313 was the earliest in with the answer. And GCam Isidafo has moved into second and IBDB in third.
And just a reminder, if your name still is showing up as contestant number, whatever, if you mouse over, you should be able to find something on the right of the screen that you can click, hit manage access, and let it see your username.
I don't see EVC in the leaderboard here. He must be not a Red Sox fan. Minnesota Twin question for you.
So now this would be a fun shape card, with all the hits, but just doesn't get on base.
Yeah, only 13 times walked. Wow.
And then bonus question for the chat. Can you name the other ex-twin that this player tied with? It's probably harder without multiple choice. But
Well, this one wasn't answered too well there, Charles. Not a lot we're familiar with that.
A tough one.
All right, our update. I think what did you make, 9 questions or 10?
10, and the 10th one is where you get to figure out, because there is a theme here. So, that may help you with these, is to figure out there is a theme, which is going to help you answer these.
GCam 62 in first place, Isidafo in second, J-Spy coming out of nowhere, J-Spy 83 in third, and IBDB has dropped down to fourth. All right, I think we have 2 more questions to go. 51 of you participating. Cincinnati Reds, Brooklyn's Superba.
Yeah, got an old time one here.
Yeah, for all you older folk out there.
If you remember this, then you're probably not watching the stream. Because he tossed it back in 1904.
First no-hitter in Pacific Coast League history.
Yeah, I had not realized the PCL went back that far until I started looking this up.
And I'm very curious, the 7 people that got it right, how many was it a wild guess? Because the fact that you knew that, very impressive if you knew that one.
All right. Or did they figure out the theme? In which case,
maybe.
Might have figured out the theme.
All right.
I've got a close race.
It is close, yeah. Isidafo now is in second. IBDB's moved back up to third. Statmonger moving up to fourth. Jeff Steele Flex still in there.
All right, I see a couple of people say they think they got the theme now. So
okay, yeah, that'll be for the last question.
Yep.
0.77 walks per 9. In 1992, we're under half the next best 1.6. Who had a 0.77 walk per 9?
It's also pretty impressive.
Very impressive, yeah. A card I've seen in the game. I don't know if it's in this year, but definitely it has been in the game before. Congratulations to the 19 people that guessed that one right.
Yep.
Total scores. Oh, making a late run, making a kidneys-like 8-inning run. We have Izadafo moving into first place with 21,000 points. GCAM still in there. Statmonger, Embezzler, J-Spy, and IBDB, you're going to have to answer very quickly, I think, to make up ground in this last question.
Is this the last one coming up?
This, I believe, is the last one.
All right.
So 10,000 points is the maximum you can get. So still a chance for some of you.
All right. So did you figure out the theme? That's the question.
Here we go. Here we go. What is the theme? Oh, Izadafo was in the lead, and he thinks he's got the theme now.
He thinks he's got the theme. I think he might have this then.
And pretty much half the people that guessed got the theme. So 21.
I think people got the theme figured out, huh?
21. So maybe, Charles, talk a little bit about what the specific theme is for these guys.
Sure. Or no, we should let the chat do it. We let the chat.
Oh, okay. What geographical theme do these players have in common?
There we go. I think Sean got it. Yep. These are all of them have the same name as towns in the Boston area.
And here we have our final results. Izadafo, congratulations.
Well done.
So Izadafo, we've got a bonus 5 standard packs for you, Izadafo, for winning this impromptu contest, testing it out for us. Thanks for all of you for participating. Don't worry, we'll still be doing our regular draw a little bit later, but 5 packs for Izadafo for winning that contest. So Izadafo, make sure I get your PT username in the chat there, and I hope that you pull one of the 2 remaining Sandy Koufaxes with that.
Just one. No, you got to pull 2 of them to be really successful. You know, you keep one, you sell one.
Okay, so yeah, that is, I'm glad it worked. You guys were kind of the test run here today, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. Plan for more of those, and we didn't want too long of a timer just because it allows people to Google and things like that. So I think 10 seconds, Charles, worked wonderful.
Yeah.
In terms of a timer. They allow you 10, 20, 30, I think even 40 seconds, but that's too long. All right, we do.
Now, that's a good question. EVC would know if there was a theme team about towns or something.
Yeah. I got it, I think, with the second one when I saw Daryl Boston.
Yeah, like, that helped a little bit.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, sorry for those of you that it didn't work on. Like I said, there may be some kinks, there may be some issues with your software, your Twitch, or maybe just a matter of locating it where it might be on your screen. Like I said, it was the first time. We couldn't really test it last night because we weren't live. So thankfully, it did seem to work out. So hopefully, you know, moving forward, we can get more people on board. But having 50 plus people work on it, that's good. Well, the perfect card, Bert Blyleven. The standard question, Charles, is he good? Is he good?
Exactly. Is he a peak card, by the way? I was trying to see what it says, and I can't actually read it on the card.
Yeah, I don't see anything here on the screen. I don't know in game if it says peak.
It's a good question. Just because I was wondering, is this the first peak card we would have had for a Hall of Famer this cycle?
FTP says yes, believes it is a peak card on the card list.
Nice.
So there you go. Top stream bracket, starting pitcher, Bert Blyleven, Minnesota peak.
Is Josh a peak card? Oh, yeah, Josh is a peak card. Yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Famer.
All right, so where does Where does Blyleven fit in your modeling? I mean, when we look at that Mike Scott one, I think it was a fairly similar profile. Let me bring up Mike Scott again.
Yeah, so it's a similar profile, but this card has more control, has a lot more control than Scott, but also has a fair bit amount less pitcher BABIP. So that's the difference.
Right. So low 70s for Blyleven, and Scott was high 80s.
Right. And in return, Blyleven is going to walk a lot fewer batters.
Right.
Because there's a big difference in control.
So, okay. Again, they're both strong, have their strengths in different areas. For me, I'm always, going to go to pitcher BABIP first. So I would, if I had a choice of the two cards, I would go Mike Scott. But maybe there's a situation, maybe there's a type of tournament where you would go for a Burt Blyleven. I don't know. You tell me, Charles, what are the strengths of playing this card?
So I think I usually look at pitcher BABIP and control kind of as a pair, because between them, what they're really doing is telling you how many base runners do you get. If you walk them, they get on base. If they get a single, they also get on base. A single is a little bit more valuable because it can advance the runners, but you can kind of think of them as a pair. And it's a much bigger difference in control between Blyleven and Scott. So it's a much bigger difference in walks than the difference in singles that you're going to give up. So between the two, I end up with Blyleven being better. So Scott is pretty close to playable for a lot of league builds. He'll be a little worse than Johan Santana, which is a card that a lot of people are still going to be playing in their rotation. I do have Blyleven is better than that, but still there's Koufax and then a big gap. And then there's Grover and maybe Addy Joss and then another big gap. And then Blyleven's in that next group is where I have him. So definitely playable. I think I'd rather play Blyleven than the build-a-lineup starters by a little bit, but it's close. And that's easier for me to say in a tournament than a league, because in a league, the way players perform is even more strongly dependent on the other people that they're playing against. In a tournament, it's a little easier to predict sort of what cards you're going to see.
I think, though, if I remember correctly from previous versions, 21, 22, 23, this may be the best Blyleven we've seen so far. I don't know if you can recollect the last Blylevens from previous ones, but I believe they weren't that very good for the 100 Blylevens we've seen.
I think so. I started playing partway through 22, so I don't know about 21, but I think it's definitely better than the one in 23. This is a card that should be in the meta somewhere for a while. Okay. I don't think personally I'm going to rush out to get this card, but it's not because the card isn't good enough to play. It's that every time when I think one of the things that we need to be aware of is we can't get every card in the game. And so I'm kind of always asking which are the ones that are such a big jump over what I have that it's really worth investing in this and I'm going to kind of get some value back, and which are the ones that maybe are a smaller jump. And, so the jump between sort of this and running Robin Roberts, this card's a little better than Robin Roberts. If I had all the points in the world, I'd get Burt Blyleven. If I happen to get one in a pack, I'll probably play him. But it's a small enough jump that with the points I have available, probably there are other cards I would try to get first.
So in terms of the packable cards, your Addy Joss, you say Santana's probably a little bit slightly better. Tannehill probably better as well.
I think this card's better than Santana, and I think this card is a little bit better than the build-a-lineup starters as well. But it depends who you'd be replacing, because if you're replacing one of your build-a-lineup starters, this is probably only a little bit better.
Right.
And so then the question is just, especially as a new card that's a perfect, because you're starting with no one in the game having him, you're probably going to pay a lot of points if you want the card.
Is this a card that is eventually going to make its way to the bullpen, or does he not have the makeup for a bullpen card?
I think he'll make his way to the bullpen, but the problem is that So the problem is that a card that starts out being kind of at the back end of your rotation has a much shorter shelf life because you don't need that many people to jump in front of him before he's not a bullpen piece either. You know, just like every time a better card comes out, you sort of move everyone down a notch. And so what I'm always asking when a new card like this comes out, the first question is it better at all? If it's not better at all, don't worry about it. This one is an improvement. So then the next question is, you know, is it a big enough improvement that I should, you know, save up points and go get this card? Or is it a small enough improvement that maybe I should keep saving points and get a card that's a big jump instead? So I think it is a jump. It's a card I'd like to play, but it's not a card that I would spend a few 100,000 points for. And usually when a new perfect comes out that's packable, you're probably going to have to spend a few 100,000 points if you want to play him.
So there you go. Not worth the price you're going to have to pay for a slight upgrade if you already have the build a lineup. And not a mission card. This is a packable card that you can get in the pack. So good luck. I mean, if you pull them in a pack, you're probably going to use them. 95% of you're probably going to use them on your team somewhere. Yeah. Let's finish off with kind of the card of the set, the card that either intrigues us or we really want to get into our lineups. I'll go first here, and I'm going to pick a card simply because growing up, this was one of my favorite teams. We didn't talk about it. I left it till now. Look at those beautiful Expo colors. Yes, the Montreal Expos GT Sundown. If you're still in the chat, I am a member of the Montreal Expos in the EMLB League. So for me, this is my card of the set. Seeing that logo there, we can talk about it a little bit. 71 iron, low iron. So maybe a low iron tournament, worthwhile card. But is the control too low for it to be effective? What do you think?
So did you become an Expos fan, or that's a good question, because if you're growing up sort of more Western, where do you end up? Yeah,
I'm first and foremost Canadian. So both the Expos and the Blue Jays, those were the two, and it helped because they were in different. You know, one was in the AL, one was in the NL, so they didn't really have that interleague rivalry. So always hoping for an Expo Blue Jay World Series, which, you know, in 94, 95, 96 could have been a possibility, but I love both equally. Probably leaned a little bit more towards the Blue Jays during the Dave Stieb period, but not by much.
I see. Yeah, so I think unfortunately this one's just a little bit behind a lot of the silvers that are being run, because there are cards that look like this but just have another 15 points of pitcher BABIP, or cards that look like this with another 15 or 20 points of control. So I think this probably is a little bit more of a fun theme team kind of card than one that I would be looking to start. But you know,
Chess Safari, I did not attend Expo 67. No, I have not been further further east than Saskatchewan. So no, Expo fan, but not an Expo 67er. No. All right. Sorry for interrupting there, Charles. I just thought that was a funny comment there.
No, it's a good one.
So in an iron cap, I don't know if there are iron caps, because it would only cost you 1 point if there was kind of an iron cap.
If there was silver floor cap, yeah, I think for silver, yeah. For silver floor cap, then it might be more interesting, because you're kind of running. So another card that's 71 that I think I would like a bit better would be Vince Velasquez as a starter. But you know, you may be running a bunch of players that you're, you know, kind of picking right around 70. So yeah, for a silver floor cap, I think it's a little more interesting. I can see where I'd put him, but I still think, just if I compare him to the other lefties that are available, even, there are probably some that are going to be a bit better, because you're starting to get into a lot of power. So there's like another TOPPS, Tom Glavine, that's 70. There's a Cole Hamels that's 70. The tournament Babe Ruth, you know, has something similar, but now has like 90 pitcher BABIP. Yeah. So.
Okay, so there are better.
I don't think I'd be looking to play this in a silver floor one, but you know, yeah.
Okay. And what about your card of the set? Which one kind of jumped out for you?
I think the one I'm most excited about for a couple of reasons is the Josh Hader. And it's funny to be excited about a card that I don't actually know whether I'm going to end up playing at all. Uh, but it's a card. It's a card that's going to be interesting for kind of, because part of what you do when you're modeling the game engine is you want to learn how stuff works. And so you look for cards that can kind of break things and you understand why they break, and that helps you improve the model. And so the first reason I'm really excited about this card is that 128 pitcher BABIP might just break some models and kind of be really interesting. And I think also one of the things that's really nice about this is definitely a Josh Hader card. This isn't like a card where you just sort of took like a generic, you took like a generic name and stuck it on there. I think it's a representative card. So I think it'll be fun to run it. And also, I kind of like tinkering with stuff and trying to play with, can I actually convince the manager to do the things I want to with a bullpen? And this is the kind of card that I think will at least motivate me to try. I might discover I can't and give up on him pretty quickly, but it's a card that'll be fun trying to figure out if I can make work.
All right. Yeah. Well, Gorgo, I see, is opening packs. And did Gorgo actually pull the Bly-11? Or is EVC just kind of joking around there? I'm sure Gorgo wants that Perez card, being a red player. So, yeah, good luck, everyone, in your pack polls. So closing comments, overall with the cards that you saw today, Charles, anything you kind of want to end off on here, either tips or advice or something about the cards? We used to have the 2-minute kidney rant. I don't think you're a ranter, but we'll give you a little bit of time for some closing comments.
I think more of the closing comment I'd have is just kind of thanking you for inviting me. It's a lot of fun. It's a different kind of audience than we get for the Warbot stream. So I think it's a lot of fun to kind of have this style of looking at them instead. And I think the card set, there are a few interesting things that'll be fun. I don't know if there are a ton of things that, completely are going to change the meta this week, but maybe that's actually good. I mean, we've had a couple weeks recently where the meta completely changed. So maybe it's good to let us figure out how it works for a little bit.
All right. Well, I think we've got two more things we have to do here. And one of them is our giveaway contest. So always on the streams, I give away a couple sets of packs, 10 packs to the first name drawn and 5 packs for the second name drawn. So I'm going to get that started up here very, very quickly. It should pop up in the chat when it's live. Exclamation ticket, exclamation enter to get into that draw. We'll give you a couple minutes. We're not going to give you too long today. Definitely close to the longest HAWC report that we've had. Kidneys and I usually kind of went between 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we're a few minutes over that, but I don't mind it. We had a lot of things to talk about today.
Sorry, I tend to end up with long streams, so that's something to work on, I think.
Yeah, well, it was fun, Charles. It was. I just love your perspective. I love how confident you are in the cards and the ability of the cards, and how quickly you can analyze them with your models. And again, that's the common question: is should I play this card or that card? And there's a lot more to it. A lot more factors: the ballpark factors, the types of pitchers, all that kind of stuff. But I think you gave a lot of people here today some really good points to walk away with their teams, tournaments or league play. So thank you so much for being part of this.
It's a lot of fun, and look, baseball is a complicated game, so it makes sense that OOTP should be too. But yeah, I really appreciate the chance to come on. I don't think I'm a good replacement for Kidneys, but maybe he's just not quite replaceable.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I think you added a really nice, your really nice addition and flair to the show today. So yeah, don't sell yourself short. It was really, really nice having you on today. And I think everyone in the chat really appreciated everything that you gave to them today. So thank you again, Charles. Feel free to enter the contest too, Charles. You are eligible, but I will let you go as I wrap things up here. We'll chat a little bit on Discord a little bit later, but yeah, thanks so much for being on the stream. Big, everyone give Charles a big round of applause and enjoy the new content.
Thanks for having me.
Right, let's finish off this contest. 1 more minute to go. 78 entries, exclamation ticket, exclamation enter to get in. A few things that I always do to end off my shows. Thank you. Thanks, all of you. Thank you, Chess Safari, for the 5 gift subscriptions today. Thank you for all the new followers today. Thursday, I usually don't get a chance to shout everyone out because so much going on. Thanks for all of you that played in the contest today. Again, be kind to one another, be kind to yourself, help out when you can, give what you can, take what you only need, and make this world we live in a little bit better place. It is a great day for baseball. I'm excited to open up some of these packs and get some of those cards. And we are going to raid in. However, just check something here. We have both IROC and we've got Dr. Dynastic going on right now. And I never like when 2 affiliates are going on at the same time because I don't want to choose one or the other. So we are going to spin. This was the wheel where Kidneys and I figured out which was the mystery card. We are going to spin who we raid into. So it is the destiny of the wheel. And today, the recipient of all your love and views will be I Rock This. So don't have to go anywhere. Of course, if you want to go watch Dr. Dynastic, you can find his channel on Twitch. But like I said, I didn't want to have to choose one. We'll do it with the Wheel of Destiny. Good. Everyone submitted their names. Thank you guys again for tuning in to the HAWC Report with Charles from Warbot. Make sure you go follow him. Go check him out. If you haven't been to his channel, go do that right now. Give him a quick follow. And I am back Monday, and then I am back on Tuesday with my special 1K 100th episode. Hope you guys will tune in. Laptop Pound signing out of the studio. Don't go anywhere. We're going to stream into I Rock This. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend. We'll see you next episode.